Hi everyone, I'm Kat and welcome to my channel, Naturally Beautiful Girl. So today I am doing a review and demo of the new PYT Beauty No BS Eyeshadow Palette. And this is a new brand that is being carried at Credo Beauty. There's a lot of new brands being carried at Credo Beauty and a lot of new eyeshadow palettes. I kind of feel like I'm in eyeshadow palette heaven. I personally love eyeshadow palettes, and that's something for a long time that I felt like non-toxic beauty was really missing out on, was having eyeshadow palettes. And because it's something I really loved, I've decided to kind of go through and try out a whole bunch of these new palettes for you, give you my thoughts, show you demos of me using the eyeshadow palettes. And then I think at the end, because there have been so many new eyeshadow palette releases recently, that I'm gonna kind of do a wrap-up video and really give you my thoughts on all of the different eyeshadow palettes, kind of tell you who I think which ones are best for and all of that. But today I'm just gonna be focusing on this new one here, the PYT Beauty. This one is one of the first eyeshadow palettes that I've seen in non-toxic beauty that comes in this kind of rubberized packaging. It's reminiscent very much of the NARS packaging. It's kind of this rubberized material rather than being cardboard. So it's very sturdy, it has a nice weight to it, it feels very substantial. And this palette does come with quite a large mirror, and it comes with 8 shades, 2 of which are in this larger pan here, and then there are 6 smaller pan shades. And overall, this palette is quite compact. It's not too large. I feel like there's not a lot of extra space in the palette. It's as compact as it can be, which I do like. And this eyeshadow palette does use talc, but they do use talc that is certified asbestos free. I have read about the brand PYT Beauty and what they do to test their talc. And given the processes they go through, I do feel comfortable using this eyeshadow palette. I'm very vocal about being very careful about talc and where it's sourced from, because if it is mixed with asbestos, well, then you're using a product that has asbestos in it, which is not good by any stretch of the imagination. So I do feel safe using this palette, and I believe this palette was close to $30. I believe it was around $28 if I remember. So it is more expensive than the Honest Beauty palette, but it is more affordable than some other palettes that I'm going to be trying out. So it's kind of mid-range. It comes with a mixture of 4 matte shades and 4 shimmer shades. So that's a really good ratio of matte to shimmer shades. This is definitely a palette that you have to like using shimmer shades to be able to use this palette. Like, I don't really feel like you can get a full look just using the matte shades in this palette. You definitely need to dip into some of the shimmer shades. It does come with this little clear plastic protector that you put over the eyeshadow shades like this, that actually tells you what the shade names are, which actually, I edited this out, but I temporarily just lost this in the middle of filming. I do not like that they are printing the shades on this little plastic thing, because you have to take the plastic thing out to use the palette. And then because it's clear, I keep kind of losing it. And this is like the 3rd time that I've lost this. And one time I was in a complete panic because this happened a couple days ago and I knew I wanted to film this video. And I was like, oh no, now I'm gonna have no idea what the shade names are because I've lost the little plastic thing. So I really prefer when eyeshadow palettes do print the names of the shadows on the actual palette itself. I get that it keeps this palette more compact. I guess if you're just using this kind of every day, it's not as much of an issue, but as someone that does YouTube videos about beauty products, I want to be able to reference the shade names for you guys, so I don't really like this. The one nice thing about this sheet is that it does actually go ahead and give you suggestions on where to use the different shadows, which I think, especially if you are a beginner, that is helpful. So like the Honest Beauty eyeshadow palette that gives you a card with eyeshadow looks and how to create them, this palette does give you suggestions on where to put the shades, which I really do think is helpful. And also it says on here too, if you want more, you can go to pytbeauty.com. So I'm guessing there are further resources on how to use this eyeshadow palette on their website. And then of course you'll be able to see how I got the eye look that I have on today using this palette, because I will demo that at the end of this video. I do like eyeshadow palettes that are user-friendly, because not everyone is advanced in eyeshadow techniques, and it's kind of naive to think that everyone's gonna pick up an eyeshadow palette and know exactly how to use it, because honestly and truly, a few years ago, I would have had no idea either. I've learned what I do from watching a lot of YouTube videos, experimenting, trying things out on myself, seeing what works well for my eye shape, what colors look good on my skin tone, all of that. But you know, when I first started, I had no idea what I was doing either. So I really do appreciate palettes that have that. Here's what's interesting about this palette. This palette is marketed as a palette that can go from day to night, but I'm not entirely sure I actually agree with that. I find the shades to overall be very soft and to be definitely more of a daytime soft glam look. It's hard for me to really build up the colors and get a kind of dark, smokier look. Really the only shadow that's giving me a lot of oomph with regards to that is this shade right here. It's kind of this, it looks olive in the pan, but when I get it on my eyelid, it turns kind of more of a bronzy, I wouldn't say like antique gold shade, if that makes sense. It doesn't look as olive as it does here on the pan. There is this black shade, but it's almost more of a kind of dark gray. It's not that intense of a black. It's definitely a little bit more gray than black, which has its pros and cons. I think marketing this as a day to night palette is not entirely accurate. I would call this a soft glam palette. I know Anastasia Beverly Hills has a soft glam eyeshadow palette, but I feel like that would have been the perfect name for this palette because it really, to me, that is the essence of this palette, is it being soft glam. So the shades overall work well, blend well, but they're not that intense and they're not that pigmented. That is why I'm giving it that soft glam designation, because to me it's not as oomphy as a lot of other shadows. Like I think the shadows in the Honest Beauty palette have more oomph. I think the Mother Bear's handmade eyeshadows have more oomph. I think Root eyeshadows have more oomph. These just aren't as oomphy, but they're pretty colors in their own right. And what I really like is so I just put this large shimmer shade on my finger right here. And what I really like to it is there's definitely a bit of a shift to it. Like, I'm not sure if it's picking up that well on camera, but like depending on how you get it in the light, like it can look kind of more goldy or more of that kind of pinky shade. And I think that's really cool and really unique, and I haven't seen many shadows like that. In a way, it's kind of a sheer shade, and then all the shades are that way. And what you'll notice in the eyeshadow tutorial is I actually put this shade all over the lid first and then build my other shimmers on top of that. And I think that actually helps the other shimmers to work better. And I got that idea actually from this card, which tells you where to put things, because it suggested putting this shade, which is called Meet You There, all over your lid all the way up to your brow bone. And I don't quite take it all the way up to my brow bone, but I definitely think applying it all over my lid really helped the other shadows to build on top of it better. Because the issue I was having was when I would just go in with one of the shimmer shades without anything underneath it, I felt like you could still see my eyelid and like the discoloration on my eyelid underneath that shade, which a lot of you may be able to fix by applying concealer to your eyelid first and then putting the eyeshadows on top of it. But because I have oily, hooded eyes, putting concealer on my eyelids as an eyeshadow base is like the worst idea. It causes my eyeshadows to just run away and crease, and like it really does not work well. My eyeshadows will not stay put. So that wasn't gonna work for me. But definitely it's a eyeshadow palette that you have to spend some time layering and building up the color in order to get good pigmentation. I think too that these colors are really well suited for someone close to my skin tone, but I think if you don't have a fair to light skin tone and you start moving into a medium to deep skin tone, that you're going to have issues with this palette, because these are the crease shades here, these kind of two light brown colors, and that's it. There are no darker crease shades to build up the color. There's this black, but you're not going to want to put a black color in your crease. So I feel like this works well for me and for my skin tone, but as soon as you start moving into a deeper skin tone, you're not actually going to be able to see those shades on your skin. So I don't think this is really that universal of a palette. I really think you have to be close to my skin tone to have this palette work for you. Let me go ahead and swatch all these shades so you can actually see how they look on my skin tone. Here are all the shades swatched on my arm. They do swatch very well, and they are really beautiful shades, as you can see. The matte cream shade and the first brown crease shade are completely invisible on my arm. And that's what I mean by, okay, well, maybe you can slightly see this one. But that's what I mean about the palette not being very friendly for deeper skin tones. Like even on my super fair skin, like these two shades are just completely invisible. I really do like that there is a matte cream shade in the palette. As I've said many times, and as you will see in the demo, I like to use that matte cream shade in my crease because it really helps all the other shadows blend on top of it. But as you can see, the next crease shade doesn't really show up, like it barely does. And I do use it, and you'll see me use it in the demo, and I do put it down, but you just don't really see it. I really don't feel like I start building any color in my crease until I get up to this shade. And then the next deepest shade is this black. So I feel like we're kind of missing a little bit of a deeper brown shade in there. You can see all the shimmers are really nice, and they are, you know, they're definitely showing up on my arm, but they're also not the most shimmery things. These 4 shades over here are shimmers, but I mean, they catch the light a little bit, but not that much. I guess that's what I'm saying, is they're just not that intense. And you'll see me I'm using this shade, and this shade all on my lid today. I still don't feel like it's that intense of an eye look. Like, it's a very much everyday eye look for me. It's not a nighttime super glam palette. This last shade here is very nice, and I think especially during the winter I'll be reaching for it more. And the most intense eye look I've gotten using this palette has been applying this shade all over my lid, but that was the most intense I was able to get. And of course I use this black shade to line my upper and lower lash line, so I can get a little bit more definition using that. But overall, I just don't think it's that intense. Another issue I have with this palette is I feel like it's missing a light enough shade for a highlight, because this cream shade is pretty much my skin tone, and this shade here is a little bit darker than my skin tone and a little pink. So I actually don't have a good highlighting shade in this palette. And like I said before, you know, I always have whatever I'm using for my face highlight. I could use that as my inner corner highlight, but it's just nice for completeness to have that highlight shade in this palette to begin with. So I do put this shade here on my inner corner, but I feel like, I mean, I have it on right now, but I feel like you really can't see it, and it doesn't do much to brighten or open up my inner corners. So overall, what do I think about this palette? I think it's good if you're someone with fair to light skin. I think it's good if you want to create looks that are very natural, very wearable, very everyday, and you don't need anything that intense, nor do you want eyeshadows that are that intense. If you want eyeshadows that you don't have to worry about creating a super intense smoky eye by accident, these are good shadows for that. So I think it's a very good beginner palette. Because the shades are very blendable. You can build them up. It's just there's a limit as to how far you can build them up. I think if you have a deeper skin tone, that you are going to encounter problems with these shades. I obviously don't have a deeper skin tone, so I'm speaking from my experience and with my skin tone, kind of the limits I run into with this palette, and I can envision that if you have a deeper skin tone, you might encounter more issues than what I was encountering. I think the price point on this is good, especially given the packaging, given the nice kind of rubberized packaging, the large mirror. Like I said, it is one of the more affordable eyeshadow palettes that I'm currently testing out. Not as affordable as the Honest Beauty, but more affordable than some other ones. It's not my favorite, but I don't hate it. Like, I definitely like this a lot better than something like the Lily Willow palette. I find the shades easier to work with. I actually do enjoy reaching for this palette. I just know that if I want an intense eye look, this is not the palette for me. So there are limitations, but overall, I think it's an interesting palette. And hopefully this video kind of gave you some of my insights into this palette. Stay tuned, because now I'm going to show you a demo of me using this eye palette to get the look I'm wearing today. First, I'm going to take the shade Meet You There and apply it to my lid using my finger. And this is just a nice shimmery shade, and I find that it works as a good base for all the other shimmers in this palette. Now I'm going to take the shade Happy Hour, which is a taupe shimmery shade, and apply this all over my lid using my finger on top of Meet You There. I'm going to move to the crease and apply Up and Out, which is a matte cream shade, to my crease, and this is going to help all the other shadows I apply in my crease blend out really easily. Now I'm going to take the really light brown shade called Coffee Run, which has a great name, and apply this all over my crease. This is going to be really the first color that I'm going to lay down in my crease, which is going to build up any color, but you can't really see it that much on my fair skin. To build up some definition in my crease, I'm now going to take the shade Day Trip, which is a deeper brown, And using a smaller brush, I'm going to really focus that on the outer edge of my crease, so the outer edge of my eye, furthest away from my inner corner. Going back to my lid, I am now going to apply the kind of olive antique gold shade Rooftop to the outer corner of my lid, and this is going to give some dimension to my lid. Finally, I'm going to apply a bit more of Meet You There as my inner corner highlight. I hope you found this video helpful, and if you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Also, be sure to hit the bell button so you are notified of when I post new videos. And also check out my Instagram. I have tons of cool photos on there. I'll show you my makeup of the day, show you products I'm using and loving. So be sure to check that out. My Instagram is @naturallybeautifulgirl. And once again, thank you so much for watching, and please let me know if you are kind of in palette heaven right now, if you're trying out any of these palettes, what some of your favorite non-toxic eyeshadow palettes are. And once again, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!